Welcome to Beyond the Gates 2025. This is Greek Holland, day 3, and here we are at the festival VIP area because we are fucking, important people, or at least some of us is. But here we have a guest who is not a musician, as you might expect usually people to be on this interview. So rather, for me, instead of me doing the introduction, let's introduce the man of the hour, sir. Your name and status, and what the fuck are you doing with me?
Yeah, okay, of course. I know you from before, so that helps. I'm Roy Kristensen from Imoteep. I don't know if it's a magazine or if it's a fanzine, but it's a Zine.
Yeah.
Yeah. So basically doing what Zines do. Compile a few interviews, chat with people, have a conversations, edit them into articles, kind of, and then release them, basically.
Now, the reason, obviously, why you're here is that you're a long-time veteran. You didn't start doing these fanzines just yesterday, but decades ago. So let's go to the very, very beginning. When Roy was a small boy and didn't know anything about metal music, but eventually he found it. When did it happen? Do you remember what was the first band or album that you listened to and you realized this is the shit I'm going for?
I started to listen to extreme metal in the late 80s. I heard, of course, Our Maiden. You go through all the stages. I'm so old that I've gone through the stages. And then you come to a point where you, okay, do I want to do more? Do I want to see what happens if I do this or that? And a friend of mine, Lasse Marhaug, he said, yeah, why don't you make a sign? You're very enthusiastic, you're very into this metal, you love black metal, you love death metal, you're so into it. Why not make anything? And that's basically it. And then I started to send questions. And I must admit, the first sign is horrible, of course. It's. I remember I sent so many questions to Impale Nazarene. It was so stupid. It was questions, everything I thought about, with no plan, nothing that I wanted to do with this article. It was just any question I had, and I sent it off.
Now, what year is? Do you remember?
That's actually 1994, 1995. The first sign, if I remember correctly, was in 1995.
So Norwegian black metal was very young at that era, but even though a lot of the so-called key cornerstone albums were out, and you realized, okay, you want to be part of it, even though you're not exactly playing the music, but you wanted to put your finger on it in a way. And
yeah.
Was it the Impale Nazarene, the first interview you did, or was there something before?
I don't remember the first one I sent off, because I sent off a few onto the first sign. But I remember the reason, the inspiration for the sign was, of course, that I loved to read. And I didn't like to read about it in the magazines. I wanted like the Eastern fanzine, which is God, of course. And the Slayer magazine, of course.
Yeah.
And Slayer magazine has been a big inspiration. I tried not to copy, but of course, what can you do?
Yeah,
it's been a lot, very much inspiration. And actually, this is not very much known, but Metallian, he decided to basically quit after number 10, I think, because he thought, if I remember correctly, I was in contact with him. So he didn't really want to do anything else, do anything more, because he was tired of doing the fanzines. He's done 10 fanzines for a few years, enthusiastic, but still just going in the same circles. And then he asked me, we chatted about it, and he asked me if I said to him, I could typewrite it. So Slayer magazine number 11, if I remember correctly, is typewritten by me.
Okay.
And then he, of course, made the layout.
Yeah.
And so then he continued, which is an honor for me, but I never have mentioned it anywhere. It says somewhere, I don't know if it's writing by Roy Kristensen or if it's typewriting or whatever it says in that number, I don't remember. But then he continued for a few many years and made up to 20. So it's an honor, but I don't mention it anywhere.
Yeah.
Until now, of course.
Okay.
Because now it's history and everything. And that helped me as well. Because I wanted, I love this music so much.
Yeah.
So I wanted to continue. So
Yeah.
then I continued with Imhotep for many years.
Now, how was the scene back in the days? You mentioned, of course, the Slayer was there, but were there other important ones that you kind of wanted to make a better version or saw as an inspirator or, I don't know, competitor in a way? How was the zine culture back in the days?
I remember one thing. My English was not good. It was okay. I didn't have anybody to proofwriting, which is sad because that should have been done. But I remember these glossy magazines or fanzines like Nordic Vision came.
Yeah.
And the typewriting and then the spelling mistakes. It was like, what the fuck is going on? Putting so much money into a magazine, and you can't. In every sentence, almost, it felt like that. In every sentence, there was wrong. It was like, what's going on? So I decided after that, around maybe 97, 98, to at least put a bit of effort into writing proper English. So of course, from let's say Imhotep number, let's say 5, 6, the English is improving and it's getting better and better and better. I also had all other writers who were better in English than me, so that helped a lot as well. So Nordic Vision was like, what the fuck? They do this, I can do better. Not that I wanted to be bigger, but I wanted to be better.
Yeah, actually more professional in a way.
I'm not saying that it turned out that way, but I wanted to. I remember.
Now, obviously, when you do that stuff, one of the first steps is to convince like the bands to actually answer your questions, because obviously back in the days, young guys being arrogant, like, hey, what is this? You need to prove yourself. Was there a lot of that in the Norwegian scene with the, like a scenes like, hey, who are you to ask these questions? Like, show me that you're a real person, or were there like easy ones? Like, yeah, let's do them.
Back in the late 90s or the middle 90s, late 90s, I had short hair.
Yeah.
I never had no tattoos or anything like that. I had my straight jeans jacket.
Yeah.
That's it. So I wasn't metal at all by looks.
Yeah.
But I talked to people, I wrote to people, I got communication, of course, helped, and then I started to send out the questions that I mentioned earlier, and I got from Absu, from Terion, I got handwritten replies, which some of them I think I have somewhere, and that was like, okay, then I have to, how can I write this into something else? Typewriting, I didn't have any computer back in 1994, 95, 96. So it was just by chance. It was, I sent it out and normally I got replies. Maybe they felt that I was very enthusiastic. So, because they got a lot of questions and most of them even replied, which is astonishing because these questions were not really good.
What I've noticed with your writings, because I've been reading your stuff, obviously, is that you also has this kind of I guess very Norwegian humor, but humor nonetheless, dark maybe, and maybe not so obvious to everybody. And as you know, in this extreme metal scene, humor is not always that welcome. There are always these serious guys who are like, you cannot joke about this and joke about that, and we old folks are like, come on, what the fuck? Don't be that poser who is like taking too seriously. But did you ever have to convince these people, like with your writing, were they offended or challenged when you make some jokes or funny remarks?
Not as far as I remember, but I remember that I did one thing. I asked, because I'm no journalist, I'm an amateur. I just do this because of enthusiasm. So I sent off questions, and there were like maybe 2, 3, 4, 5 questions in one question.
Yeah.
And then they replied, on it, and I didn't edit anything, which was very stupid in the beginning. I do the same kind of stuff now, but now I edit it into proper, like, okay, you have some writing and then you have the question that you are focusing on, and then you get the reply.
It's more readable.
It's easy readable now, while, I mean, some of the issues are like, I can't read it myself. Not only because of the small font, but because it's not readable anymore, because there's so many questions, and when you get the reply, it's like, okay, yeah, he replied to that there, and that there, and that there. That was the way it was. Amateur enthusiasm, and that was basically it, the first at least 5 years. I should have spoken to someone and said, yeah, how should I really do this? How should I maybe I should turn it into journalism or something? But I didn't, so I just did my stuff and didn't care about it. But, well, that's a part of the history.
Now, quite early on, you also had other people already joining the Imhotep crew, becoming actually more than just Roy K. Writing the stuff. How did it happen? Were you recruiting people, or were there volunteers like, I want to write for your zine?
Yeah, that is a very good question, because I didn't really want anybody else. But people like the stuff. I have something I like this band. Maybe I can do an interview there and blah blah blah. And then, of course, some 5, 6, 7 people helped out with articles and reviews, and that's it.
But there was this funny moment for a while. I was just talking to your spouse about it. That it was funny. Like originally, I wrote maybe a couple of reviews, not many. I remember that, and I was kind of recruited by a mutual friend back then. And
Sauli, was it Sauli?
Sauli, yeah. And then I suddenly had too much on my plate, and I just like I couldn't do it, which is kind of a sad. But also it was kind of a funny that we lost contact for many years, and suddenly almost 20 years later we bump into one another at the Inferno Fest, and suddenly we go to memory lane talking about old albums and all that stuff, and it's like a circle is complete, and then you realize the same guys who were enthusiastic back then are still in the game. What I'm taking this as an excuse to talk about is obviously over the years we've seen people come and go. There are always these guys like, hey, I want to participate. A couple of years later they're gone. Then there are a new breed of guys who are like, hey, I want to do this and that, and you see them gone. So you must create some level of cynicism or pessimism towards the people who are like so eager to do stuff and then they don't.
One thing is that there is no money in it. If it's been a magazine like Metal Hammer, if we had aimed for a magazine, maybe. You never know. But I always had a regular job, had education, own an apartment, or now I own a house together with my wife. I mean, it's like, it's never been about the money. It's been about the enthusiasm.
Exactly.
It's been about I love the music. And so I guess the reason that I'm still here while others have been falling apart or dropping off is that music, I'm still curious about why do the musicians do those choices? Why do they write lyrics about that? How do they make the music? I'm still interested without being a musician, because I don't know if they play G or F or whatever they play. I'm not so interested in that thing, but I'm interested in about the atmosphere, about what they are trying to tell us, but trying to give us, because a musician is giving of him or herself, and we are coming in a year, half a year, 2 years later, or in the Thorns case, 20 years later, we are coming in and listening to what they had in their mind or in their soul and their heart, and then we try to interpret it. So I'm still curious about that, especially when there is music that I don't really understand, but there is something there.
Like today at the listening session, people were like so focused, like musical snobs. I was like, shh, be silent. I'm focusing on this chord or this melody. And I was like looking at the people like,
everybody said blah, blah, blah. No, but the thing is, it's about the music. And it's about the creators of the music.
Of course.
It's always been about that. So I guess people who have written for Imhotep, they have written and been enthusiastic, but for a while.
Yeah.
And then something else had happened. Maybe they got children, or maybe they got another job, or maybe it's taken too much time because there is no money in it. But I'm always been there.
Yeah.
Also write for the Norwegian Scream magazine, who's been a regular. They release 10 magazines, 10 issues a year.
Yep.
So that helped me with the Norwegian writing and then transcribing or translating into English for Imhotep. So I've always been into the writing. It's just a part of the deal.
But I've seen the same thing happen in Finland, as you know, because I've been writing since early 2000s, and I've seen so many people. It doesn't matter what gender they are, or what age, but they're always usually the younger. Hey, I'm like 20. I want to make album reviews, and then 2 years, 5 years later, they're gone. And of course, it's harder these days because back in the days, you would get physical promos. There was always something like you would get first before they're out. So that was the kind of a reward, even if there was no money. And nowadays, there are no physical promos as much as back in the days. Everything is going digital. There is no so much premiere, like you're listening to them first, usually a little bit later. So things are even harder for things like people like us who are not doing for the money and all. So what I'm asking, has this changed your, how do you perceive the whole underground journalism to be done?
It's an excellent question. It's a very difficult question.
Yeah, it's a kind of a tricky, but
it's very tricky. Now the thing is, there is still no money for me, and I don't care about the money. I have decided for myself after the last number 9 was done in 2003. And I've never been a salesman or anything.
Yeah.
When the sign is done, I'm kind of done.
Yeah.
And then afterwards, the selling thing is boring.
Yeah.
So then we made it into a web sign, which was okay, but in the end, it didn't feel real.
Yeah. Not tangible.
There was something missing there. Me and my friend Paul Kearns from Ireland, we did a lot of video interviews with bad equipment, no good sound, but we did it. We were still enthusiastic for a couple of years. But then we had to make the choice: should we go all in with buying real equipment, or should we just stop? So we stopped, and then I had a few years where I didn't know what to do. Because it didn't feel real. The scene was changing. Everything was changing. The digital stuff, and as you mentioned, the promos. People they put out the promos maybe almost at the same time as they put it on Bandcamp and stuff like that. But then I got to the conclusion that I don't care. I can't care about that. I had to do what I feel is real.
Yeah.
And that's writing or talking to people and being interested in music and then making it into a sign in the end and releasing it. And if people like it, hooray. And if they don't, well, buy something else. If you want to write an article on the web, on the web, internet for 2 minutes, if that gives you anything, hooray. But I want to have the piece of paper. Yeah,
because something physical, something real.
It has to be that in the end. That's why I still buy vinyls and CDs and So in the end, it had to be physical. So that's when I decided to do the Imhotep number 11 after so many years. Yeah, that came in 2015.
Yeah,
and then it took 8-9 more years until number 12 came, which is weird, but it has to do with my favorite band. It has to do with Deathspell Omega, because I always waited for that interview, because we started it in 2007 and we ended it in 2019.
That's like quite many years.
Yeah, so it's been like my Guns N' Roses thing. But when I thought that when I'd done that, I would stop and be a fan and listen to music again. But I realized that there were others out there that I was still curious. I still wanted to know things about music, and so here we are.
It makes you almost look like you're like too stubborn to give up. Everything else is like, okay, fuck it. We don't need paper anymore. It's all about TikTok videos and whatever, quick messages. Hi, blah, blah, blah. And you're like, fuck it, more paper. You need this to your grandchildren and all that stuff. But there's a funny thing before we go on with the future stuff and all, is that I remember some of the older Imhotep zines even say like, next magazine is going to be out, say, this and that month, and things didn't really work that way. But was it something to do with this thing you mentioned, or was it some other reason why there were these delays, why the schedule wasn't exactly what planned?
Now we had plans. Me and Sauli Voutu from Finland. He was more like a editor. He wanted to go forward, but I felt that it wasn't real because then it would turn into a magazine.
Yeah.
And I don't want a magazine.
Yeah. That's too much like the monthly stuff and your
also,
deadline breathing on your neck.
But that was also what happened with the website. Was it turned into like I need to post something every day? What the fuck? Why do I need to in the end? But it took a few years to realize that's not the real thing. That's not the true thing. That's not the Imhotep thing for me. But now actually it's more. I'm more enthusiastic than ever in the sense that I made Imhotep number 12 last year, and now Imhotep 13 is coming 1 year approximately later. And I think that Imhotep number 14 will come in almost only half a year.
Wow! So
because
old man picking up the pace.
It's more like you're okay. This is what it is, and then we go from there.
Now that you mentioned that Deathspell Omega interview is very, very curious and very special thing, because as everybody who knows the band knows that there are not too many interviews out there by the very band, and it makes even more curious how on earth you are one of the very, very limited few people who got to do that. How did you earn their trust, for the lack of better word?
I have really no idea, but I think that the guys in that, I don't know if it's a band or if it's a
collective
circle or collective or
I think it's very much secret.
What did they call themselves in the before the new album? The Powerhouse Trio or Power Trio or something? I don't know, but at least they liked probably the Imoteps from before, because back in 2007 it was like I don't remember if I wrote, do you want to do anything? If they wrote, do you want to do an interview with us? I actually don't remember, because I lost the emails and stuff from back in those days. So I'm not sure, but we have had regular communication. I know the names already back in 2007 and stuff like that. But I mean, I respected them, and I understood because I made an interview. I made the questions and everything. I sent them off, and I didn't get the reply. And in the aftermath, I understand that the questions were not really good enough, looking back.
But the interview turned out to be really good and really fascinating.
Then we updated it, and I made new questions and stuff like that, and it was on a different level. So the interview that I did, I'm really, really, really proud of it. Yeah,
you should, for a reason.
Not because they don't do many interviews, because it's a good interview.
Yeah.
But also because it's in connection with the Bardo mythology interviews that Niklas did.
Yeah.
And the trio of those 3 articles are...
they're real treasure.
Yeah, it is.
There's some funny details in your writings, which I liked, which made me smile. I was supposed not to smile this kind of music, but I does. But when you were like, okay, it's my listening time number 40 with this album, like, wow, he's a really fucking crazy person. Like, this is not addiction, this is obsession. You're like really like writing notes, and I'm like picturing Roy being like there, like 5 a.m. in the morning, like making notes like a crazy person, like some weird alchemist or sort. So you really dug deep into the mindset, and you're not like ashamed to say like, hey, I'm a big fan of this stuff. This is the best band ever and all that stuff. Do you think that it helped to make this stuff, or would it have happened anyway?
If you go to conversations, not the email interviews or the interviews I've done by messenger or stuff, which is of course send a few questions, then to reply, a few questions to reply, and in the end make it to some kind of article. But if you go to the conversations, some musicians have always been like, they've been a little bit skeptical. I remember one which is describing the process. Tartaros, if you remember that, he did one album, The Red Jewel.
Yeah, we talked about it a couple of years ago.
It was in 1999. He didn't, I don't know, he didn't want to do interviews. I think there is one or two other. He was very skeptical. He was, I wanted to do an interview. Yeah, okay, great. So that day, I went down to Sandefjord to do with the Limbondegard. We sat there in the park and talking about this and that. And then I drove to Tønsberg, which is half an hour or something like that away, back home, and met with the guy from Tartaros, Charman Grimlock, which he called himself. And it's so strange to read that interview, because I remember it that he didn't want almost to reply to anything. But once he understood, and this goes for many of the band's interviews I've done, once he understood is that I have paid attention, I have spent 40 listenings, or maybe even more, he understood that, okay, I'm really into this stuff. And then he started to reply on questions he didn't want to reply in the start, which is, I mean, okay, yeah, I did something right. I mean, I've been speaking to, let's say, Opeth, and we had 20 minutes, and the manager is no, the Fredrik from Opeth said, no, I still have a few minutes left. So then we sit there and speak for 20 more minutes, because I'm always, somehow, I don't know why it's like that, but I don't ask this Metal Hammer interviews questions, but I'm more into the music and the stuff. I'm not interested in what they.
How was your latest tour? Was it fun? Have you been happy with the new video and all?
And what do you bake for? What do you eat for Sundays?
Yeah. What do you do? You do it. Okay.
I mean,
jokes aside,
it's so boring.
Yeah.
I'm interested in music, so I'm interested in the musician.
Yeah.
Not in the private person.
Yeah.
When we are speaking, but of course we can speak about things like that. But then the recorder is off.
Yeah. It's a different story.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, a lot of things have changed. Like we talked about, everything getting digitalized, and zines seem to be more like a kind of a dinosaur stuff. Like certain people understand and value and treasure it a big time. And I'm not sure about the new generation. Do they even understand the concept of zine and all that stuff? So, what I'm getting here at is like, how do audience of today find Imhotep? Like, do you get like feedback from younger audience, or are the sales a lot different than, say, with the previous issue years ago?
I have to be honest, I don't know about the sales.
Yeah, okay.
When I'm done with the sign and deliver it, I'm done. I don't care. I work with nesting.
Yeah.
Without thinking about money or anything like that. I don't get money for this.
But now you have this collaboration with Cult Never Dies, so it's not as independent as back in the days in that sense. So can you share us some light to this collaboration?
I know that Niklas and Bardo Mythology, that they released they printed quite many issues. I think the first one was 1,000, but they increased it after a few issues. Which means that you actually can make a bit of money.
Yeah.
So when me and Dale from Cult Never Dies talked about this, I told him, well, yeah, I mean, if I get a little bit money, that's okay. If I get £1 each issue, that's okay. I'm not doing this for the money. Still, not still. I mean, I have a good job, so I make,
Yeah.
But I still, of course, I wanted to be not big. But I wanted to reach out to people. And the first issue with the restart, number 12.
Yeah.
I don't know how many printed actually. Yeah. It's weird. But I'm not interested in those things. But I hope people that read it liked it. that they saw that okay, there is more to this than just reading a short article on the internet. And that's also how it will be in the future, because in the next number, which we are working on now, there are maybe the Djevel interview will be like 50, maybe 55, 60 or 45, I'm not sure because of the layout, pages.
Wow.
So it's going to be huge. And the thing, my idea is that I want at least one of those in each issue. One main, big, and everlasting.
Yeah.
Because if you're interested in the band, you can listen to the music for quite a long time and still read.
Yeah.
And then of course there are other interviews that are shorter, that some maybe are even up to date, because Imhotep is not about being up to date, but still there are articles being up to date. And then there are musicians articles, like in the new number there will be one with Ishan, which I really love that interview. It's 3 parts made into and it's about making music and how he thinks as a musician. And it's not emperor based, of course, but it's how. And I love those kind of, because then when I read those kind of interviews, I get a better understanding of the music myself, and the music is even better.
Yeah.
That's my main issue.
Now, having been so long into the scene and part of the whole metal community in Norway, obviously there must be a lot of people who know you. So what I'm asking here, a little bit jokingly, however, is that do people consider you some kind of a cult celebrity, or do they even recognize the guy behind the whole thing?
My wife says they do. I don't know.
There's a laughter coming out. But other people are like, hey, I want to shake hands, I want to take photos.
Okay. The thing is, I don't really know for sure. But my wife says, yeah, but everybody is saying hi to you and everything. And I'm like, yeah, I know people, maybe not remember the names because you meet once a year or maybe 2 years ago. But hi, okay, oh, blah, blah, you played on that album, hi, how have you been? And
but that kind of happens when you're long enough in the scene.
That's the thing. But it's not like, and there are people who know that I do Imhotep, but I don't know. I don't really know.
You don't really care, I guess.
He's down to earth.
I'm very down to earth. I have a regular job, I'm married, and a house, dog, grandchildren, 2 cars.
Mentioning dog is very important. But
two cars.
Yeah, 2 cars.
No, but just a regular guy. But when I go into the music in universe, I'm concentrating about the music, not about if I know that guy or that. Yes, I do know so many people. If I have been smart, which I'm not particularly smart, if I've been smart from the start, I would have got, autographs from everyone, taken a photo with everyone. God damn it.
Yeah.
I met everyone.
Yeah, that's part of the fun here. And I think sometimes people don't even realize it's like kind of a privilege for people like us that we get to meet to these people. But it's not about meeting them, but rather asking the important questions and hopefully shedding some light into the stuff. I guess we're pretty much finished, so I'm going to ask you a couple of few questions, short ones. First of all, you mentioned the foreseeable future is like having at least a couple of issues coming out rather soon. And are you prepared to continue this for a long time, or are you taking one step at a time or whatever?
The thing is that I have done so many interviews which are not published. And when the website, when we stopped that, a lot of things disappeared.
Yeah.
So I have a catalog. Yeah. So when I do, for example, one of the issues is going to be a big Dimmu Borgir interview article. It will be many parts already back from the 1997, 98, the first time, and building a story up till today with stuff that hasn't been published yet. In the new issue, there is a Djevel, which I mentioned, which is going to be very long. And there are parts that are not being published. Some parts have been published in Norwegian, in Scream magazine, but there are parts that have not been published at all, like the final interview. if I'm understood it correctly, the final interview with Seklas, who made all the music for Djevel. So it's going to be like when I do the Dimmerborg, as I mentioned, Immortal.
Yeah.
It's going to be like a story from the 1998 until now.
Yeah.
Compile it to one big article of many parts, and then of course there will be. I mean, if in the new issue there will be a Cradle of Filth interview, which is kind of new because they released an album news. I had a chat with Danny, and then that's going to be published. So it will be a mix of this and that. But about continuing, if the new issue will be like, okay, people like this, when is the next coming? And as I said, already starting to have the mind and will start to work on the next issue, we will do that. But of course, if Dale and Cult Never Die start to lose money, then I think it's okay. We tried, we stop.
Okay.
But if people understand it, if people see what we are trying to do, that we're still trying to perceive the history. Without must be on everything on the internet, but you actually need to do some effort to buy it, and then you need to put it in your hands and read it. And there is some people, at least enough people who want it. I think I will continue with this for 10, 15 more years.
All right, sounds very, very good.
Yeah.
And people now should check out the links provided in the description box for stuff, and also check out my review of the previous issue to more shedding light into that. Now, final set of last quick questions before I let you go and enjoy the rest of the festival is, let's start. The favorite band?
There is this quite a known band called Deathspell Omega. No, Deathspell Omega.
Okay.
I mean, because in a few words, there is something about it that there is not in any other band. And I also like the Austrian band Abigor. They started already back in 1993 when the black metal was on the rise, and they continue. And they had a break, yes, but they continue. And every album is different I love bands that do different stuff. So those are my two favorite black metal bands. But of course, I like a lot of other bands like Devil Doll, which released 4 albums plus one Strange Thing back in the 90s. So those bands are in my heart, but there are so many bands I like.
Yeah, of course. What about the all-time one favorite album?
Do you think about before 2000?
Just one album of all time that you would take to your afterlife.
Of the old time or the old of
all time,
yeah.
All time.
Okay. So
one album that you will take into the afterlife.
Yeah, it's Deathspell Omega's Fast from 2007. I've always I don't understand that album. What the fuck is going on? There's no albums like that. It just came. And then it went off. And there are bands that are inspired by Deathspell Omega. But I don't know if they're inspired by that album. Because that album is something else. And still today, I struggle with it. But I need to listen again and again and again. And I also love, of course, when the vinyls are with 20 pages, booklets, you can still try to follow the lyrics and everything like that. So that's the one album that it is a kind of a hate-love album. I hate it, but I love it.
Any favorite gig of all times that really kind of drilled into your brain?
I don't want to say it's a gig, but it's a very special thing. Back in 2003, Dimmerborg released the Death Cult Armageddon album, and as they said, I don't know if it's true, but they said that I was the only one who was allowed to sit there and listen through their rehearsal before they went on tour. So I listened to the whole album before it came out, and they are preparing to record it, and they're preparing to do the tours. And that was a really weird thing to listen to. And I was so impressed. It was so much, that Death Cult Armageddon is an album that has so much in it. So that's one of the best gigs I've been to in the sense that you can call it a gig, one-man gig.
Yeah, okay.
So, but it was nice. But if you talk about the regular gigs, there have been quite, to so many
I know
gigs.
that's an annoying question because it's so hard to
so
choose.
one of the gigs, the best gigs I never remember is the Dark Throne from 1996, of course, which is, but I was there, but I can't remember. I just remember that everybody stood still. I was in the back and I was like, why is everybody still? I hadn't figured out that, is that the blackmail thing you?
Yeah. The kind of a rock police thing.
I wanted to this is great. I want to go with like yesterday when King Diamond played. I want to play with all the solos, but the Dark Throne gig, I don't know.
Yeah, fair enough. We'll go from that, and people now do your homework and go to read a little bit Imhotep. You might have to spend a few dollars or euros in order to get the physical copy, but if you consider yourself a metal fan, I think it's more like a thing to do. And like I said, information is included in the links below, so you get to do a little bit of homework before you buy it. But now we let Roy go. Thank you so much for your time and this conversation. Now people, do what you must and get yourself into the world of Imhotep. What can I say? Oh, one more question which I forgot to ask in the very beginning. It's weird to ask this as the last one, but what's the story with the name? I have a theory, but I want to ask it as a question.
Okay, of course you know the Egyptian Imhotep.
Yep.
But this is actually from Norwegian Conan magazine.
Really?
It is.
Fucking yay!
Yeah. and I even asked them for permission. Can I use the word Imhotep?
Yeah.
And I even used the first two magazines had Imhotep, Destroyer of Worlds, which he was called in the Conan magazines.
And was such a badass character.
I mean, come on. So yes, that's I got the permission, and it's been called Imhotep since then. I have it tattooed on my back, so it has to stay with me for the rest of my life.
Now you know the one question I also wanted to know, so do it. And this is Beyond the Gates 2025. Bye-bye. Thank you. And now we take the